Welcome back to All Beer Inside, the quarantine episodes. Today I have Steve from the at Southern Ontario Beer Boys Instagram account joining me. Thanks for joining me today, Steve.
No
So
problem.
what's the story? What got you into beer Instagram?
So we've got a bit of a backstory, but it's been a fun ride for the group of us from when we started back in late 2016. So there's a group of us that we'd be chatting with each other on our phones, watching the Leafs or watching the Jays, and shooting pictures of what we're drinking and all that type of stuff. So one of the original founder, Paul, had kind of suggested, say, hey, why don't we start up an Instagram account, because we're shooting pictures of what we're drinking, and just for shits and giggles, let's just start that up. And everyone's like, sure, why not? So yeah, we did our first post, I guess, in December of 2016, and then quickly developed a following, and we've kind of expanded throughout the last couple of years, doing a bunch of stuff along the way, and just learning craft beers for ourselves, because we're not experts by any means. We're not trained. We haven't done schooling. But like many people in the craft beer community, just kind of stumble onto craft beer where we're all originally Coors Light and Moosehead and Heineken and Stella, and we all come from that base ultimately, right? And then it's until you get introduced into the whole other world that's craft beer, you don't really realize what you're missing, sort of thing. So that's kind of how we originated. Myself and Paul, a couple months previous to that, we went to the Because Beer Festival in Hamilton in, I think it was July of summer of 16. And again, we hadn't tried a whole lot of different beers along the way, so we're like, yeah, well, let's just go. We'll check it out. Tried a lot of stuff. Made us go, and I don't know, but from there, it's like, okay, next time you went to the LCBO, which is what we have here in Ontario, you pick a couple different ones here, cool can art, cool this, cool that, and then next thing you know, you're like, oh, have you tried this? This actually tastes kind of cool, right? So that's kind of how I think a lot of people start up into their craft beer love, and don't really look back once you develop that palate along the way. So that's kind of the same story for all of us in our group that kind of stumbled upon it just by chance, and no initiative other than we just wanted to try something different, and it's kind of expanded from there.
Okay, so what are you having on the episode with us today?
I am having it's called Everyday's Magic from Sawdust City, which is a hazy IPA. Sawdust City is out in Gravenhurst, which is central northern Ontario. For us Southern Ontario folk, it's Northern Ontario, but Northern Ontario is Timmins and Kapuskasing and Thunder Bay and all that kind of stuff. So Gravenhurst is not necessarily Northern Ontario, but a couple hours north of Toronto, and they do amazing beers, and this was shared to me by Paul in our group a few weeks ago, so I was saving it for a special occasion, and tonight seemed as good as any to try something new. So
That's appreciated. I'm down to one of my last Ontario craft beers until our borders are open again, from Collective Arts,
Yep.
simply IPA number 12, Collective Arts out of Hamilton, Ontario. I've unfortunately never visited it. I was in Cambridge last Easter.
Okay.
I did Kitchener, Guelph, Toronto,
Okay.
and Cambridge that weekend for breweries. So I hit 20 breweries on Easter weekend. And
Right.
then Sunday, I'm like, oh, I'll take it easy. The breweries will probably be closed since it's Easter Sunday. And then my brother-in-law is like, hey, Hamilton was open all day. Why didn't you go? I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah. So now it's like refinancing the mortgage and calling in favors for loans.
Exactly. All right. So as we'll do a virtual cheers here. So as I say on the show, a toast.
A toast. Very nice.
Ooh, yeah.
That's delicious.
Yeah, that's nice. It's not
Yeah.
overly hoppy. It's well balanced. The
Collect.
oh yeah, that's the right level of hop I like, where it's not like bam right in the face.
Yeah. Collective is we have a great relationship with Collective, our group. We do some initiatives with them, which we can get into at any point. But they've I mean, that's IPA number 12. So they started about 4 years ago, the IPA series, starting at number 1, and they've just every 3 to 5 months they release the next one, and it's simply the next one in order, right? So we're currently at IPA number 12 and eagerly awaiting what IPA 13 is going to look like. So.
Yeah, there's another person I follow on Instagram who's based in the Hamilton area, and he just bought. It looked like 224s of the number 11 because he's like, "Oh, it was what was left." Like,
yes,
okay.
that would probably be Drunk Pokeroo if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, that's the one.
Yep. We're friends with Rob and his wife Catherine, and great people, great beer, craft beer ambassadors, and it's silly to say just within our community of friends, but one of the initial bloggers, I guess, that we had kind of looked up to and saw how he presented himself and told stories and stuff like that. So we kind of followed that kind of blueprint a little bit, and not just say, hey, IPA this and 8.5% and IBU is this and tastes great, and move on, and try to make it a little more inviting, a little more real, and say, hey, it's, a sunny Sunday, this is what we're doing, it's been a tough week or this, and just put a little bit behind it. And you can tell when people read your stuff, because you'll get a response of saying, hey, they'll reference something that you've written about, and that's when it's cool, where that people aren't just flying through their phone and going like, and you start to kind of know people a little bit more than just a picture of a beer. So we're kind of all about relationships and establishing a connection with anybody along the way that wants to enjoy beer or anything that we get behind. And yeah, so Rob Drunk Pokeroo is one of the guys that we kind of molded our style of presenting our pictures and Instagram personnel, I guess, is if you want to call it that way. So.
Yeah. So myself, I'm not very descriptive when I take over our Instagram account, including myself and my videographer and editor, McMaster Phil, as I call him. He more or less, he's very articulate when he's taking descriptions of the beer, whereas I'm just like, hey, this was my favorite beer out of the 5 tonight because of this reason. Yeah. I'm not going to take an hour explaining each beer. It'll take too long. And that's my Thursday. That's my typical Thursday night. Is I'll try like 3 to 5 new beers across the region if I can, and then it's like, okay, here's my favorite and here's why. Previous interviews that I've done with other guys on the show, Hop Citizen, he's called. He's very articulate with the way he describes his beer tasting. He puts me in the mind frame of, oh my god, this must, like, I could feel it dancing on my palate what you're describing. So
yeah, we bounce around from very descriptive, long-winded description stories, or 2 or 3 sentences, just because we want to get something out there, and again, just to keep engagement and keep connecting and all that kind of stuff. But does take a little bit of time to think of words, because once they're out there, right? So you want to make sure that they make sense, and make sure your spelling's correct, and all the basics that you were taught in grade 2 and grade 3 of proper grammar and stuff like that. So there's a bit of an effort behind anything that you put out there, for sure.
And especially you got to be careful with autocorrect sometimes, or autofill, especially on Android and iPhone devices, how you're saying this word and then it's like, wait a second, hold on. So where does the SO Beer Boys or Southern Ontario Beer Boys come from? What made you guys decide that, and not just like Beer Boys or Ontario drinks, something like that?
I don't know. That was something that Paul had in our group had come up with, and at the time we were like, okay, sounds cool to me. And he had suggested SOB Boys, and then it's like, oh, that's kind of sounds, the son of a bitch boys, all right. But it's Southern Ontario, because we are in Southern Ontario, and Beer Boys. But it kind of had a little, entendre of being kind of, that way. But it's when you see people that reference, it's kind of like, oh, it's the So Beer Boys, and it's like, well, it's you should say SO because it's Southern Ontario. It's not the So Beer Boys because that just sounds weird, but it's it is what it is at this point. 3.5 years in, so.
Yeah,
so yeah,
no,
it was just a suggestion based on geographical location for us.
Plus, depending what age frame you're from, some people might mistake you as giant Stone Cold Steve Austin fans because he's constantly walking around like, "You son of a bitch." So
yeah. We do reference the 1 beer, 2 beer, 3 beers with our Josh Donaldson a few years ago with the Blue Jays winning the East there, and he referenced the Stone Cold. So that's an ongoing short video clip that we always like to have a good laugh and remember the times when we were getting close to the top again. So
yeah, and I'm looking forward to when we can all be together in giant stadiums again. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of when.
That's true. That's the question that's being asked now as the provinces kind of suggest that let's slowly open. Everyone's antsy for sports, antsy for conferences, antsy for concerts and everything else, and it's like, I don't know. I don't know when that's going to be logistically the right thing to allow to happen unless you have the vaccine in place. But I mean, who knows? I mean, we'll see where our governments lie. Canada's been doing a great job with it, better than a lot of companies or a lot of countries. Sorry, in terms of. I think the citizens of Canada have been pretty solid in terms of staying away and abiding by what people have suggested. So I think we'll be out of it sooner than other countries, but we'll see. Our neighbors to the south will be a challenge to see how they turn out over the way. I mean, they're doing good things, but some things are a little bit scattered at the same time.
So kind of speaking on a positive end now, I saw you do these things called #cans for kids and #clubs for kids. Can you speak on that?
Sure, absolutely. I'll try and give the Coles notes because there's a bit of a backstory to it, but I'll be as brief as I can on it because I'll ramble on forever on it. So myself and Paul, we had went to high school together and had separated at the end of high school, and then kind of came back through our beer league baseball about 10 years ago. And he had involved me and a group of other people in some charity initiatives, which was through the MLSC Team Up Challenge Foundation, Maple League Sports and Entertainment. So we had done a few years of raising money for Camp Trillium, which was a charity that sends kids with cancer to camp. Mm-hmm. So we, our team of 10 had 2 years in a row raised the most money out of everybody in that event. So in 2 years we had raised just over, I think, $42,000. So wow. It was very significant. At the end of it, and this is not to knock the foundation at all, but we had kind of found out that about half of that goes to cover their overhead in terms of, because they do a very big, extravagant production at the end where, teams get together, they have a full day event of sports, there's sports celebrities and personalities are involved. So there's cost in terms of all of that. So we're kind of like, all right, those couple of days that we had at the end were awesome, but we spent a lot of time and effort to raise that money, and to find out that half of it kind of went for just putting on that day and other things. We're kind of like, well, let's figure out, so we stopped doing it after that, and we said, well, we'll circle back and we'll figure out time and a place where we can do something that benefits our community directly, where we can just give whatever we would raise directly to whoever we would choose to give it to. Mm-hmm. So when we started up our Southern Ontario Beer Boys Instagram account, again, we had connected through our beer league baseball. So Paul had suggested that why don't we do a can drive during our playoff weekend in September. There's 12 teams. We drink all day while we're playing baseball, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We'll put it out there because we had been online through our Instagram for about 7 or 8 months at that time. So we'll throw it out there saying, hey, we're down here at this place, at this park. Bring by your empties. We'll have something, a tent set up. drop them off, and then we'll donate the return money to McMaster Children's Hospital. The three of us, so three of the four of us have had our kids in that hospital. Some for more serious than less serious reasons. But they're an amazing hospital. They're a local children's hospital, so we thought that whatever we collect that weekend, we'll donate to that. So we were expecting maybe $500 at the most worth of empties that weekend, and we ended up collecting about $1,400 worth of empties that weekend. So we were blown away by the response of people. So we, at the time, we had kind of coined that cans for kids. So we're collecting, it was empties, wine bottles, spirit bottles, beer bottles, beer cans, but just, play on words, cans for kids, used a K, backwards K, like striking baseballs, is a K, right? So kind of played on words and kind of came up with that. So we were blown away by the response for that. So, we had donated to the hospital a couple months later in November, did the check presentation, and things kind of snowballed from there through an associate at my place of employment. His best friend was the COO of Cowbell Brewing, who are out in Blythe, and they also support McMaster Children's Hospital, as well as the three other children's hospitals in Ontario. So I ended up being in touch with Dave Clark from Cowbell Breweries. Went and had some beers, said some ideas that we had about maybe doing something more than that. They said what they do. They have a Greener Pastures Foundation, which donate 10 cents of every beer that they sell to the children's hospitals throughout Ontario, which is amazing. They've donated tens of thousands of dollars to the hospitals. So we came up with the idea of like, hey, let's through the previous initiatives that we did a golf tournament, and the golf tournament worked out fairly well. Raised a good amount of money. I think we raised about $8,000 or $9,000 for that previous initiative that we did a few years prior. So like, hey, let's try and do this. Let's make it a craft beer inspired golf tournament where we'll invite some breweries out to do some tastings on some holes, and make it a fun event for everybody, right? So we joined forces with Cowbell. We did that initiative, and we ended up raising over $16,000 at that golf tournament for the hospital. So that was coined our Clubs for Kids initiative. Okay,
that's awesome.
Following up on the Cans for Kids, so we're getting a little bit of a repetitive play on words here. So that was very, very successful, and it was amazing because we made great connections with the folks at the Hamilton Health Sciences Foundation, who support all of the hospitals in Hamilton. And at the time, the money that we had raised was going specifically to an outdoor courtyard for the mental health unit at the hospital, because they did not have a place for their patients to go outside and experience, breath of fresh air in a safe environment. The patients had to be basically almost signed out like a library book. A doctor had to go with them, make sure they're safe, and they go outside. So this money that we had raised, along with Cowbell and their initiatives and many other supporters for that project, had gone to that. So we had raised quite a bit of money for that project, and our name is actually on the silver plaque that's outside of that project in terms of the top donors of money put towards that project. So we kind of stumbled on to these initiatives, and we had good intentions, but we had no idea how far they would go. And just through, making those connections, talking with people, saying our ideas, and people got behind our ideas, and they just kind of started to snowball along the way. So to get to a point where our names are actually forever going to be, associated with that project at that hospital is mind blowing, actually, in terms of we had no expectations for doing anything other than we had fun doing what we did a few years ago, but wanted to make a difference in our community, and that is how those couple of initiatives came about, and it's been very successful for us. So we're proud of that, and the fact that we get to put craft beer in behind our initiatives and make it fun and engaging for other people to be a part of is all the more special and meaningful to us. So it's been a great run for that.
That's phenomenal. I'm always about donating to charities and stuff when I have a chance. For a bunch of years in a row, when I was working at a financial institution, I did the Mobro campaign. I was regularly $2,500 in November just for that. And a beer league, softball beer league I was part of for years. A gentleman would come by and collect all the empties. Now you're talking guys who are pounding back Bud Light from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. all day long. And the guy would come in and he's like, thanks to you, I got to donate. I think the lowest amount was like 2,700 one year because we had 7 rainouts.
Yeah.
So it's
awesome.
And that I love to hear. And I will be getting links from you, and we will be putting them in show notes for people to donate and help you, and just get the word out there at some point as well, because I'm always about trying to support when we can. Like right now, Canada Food Banks, donate to them. Yeah, plus the name's super catchy too. I know during the breast cancer awareness months, I do bowling for boobs nights.
Oh, nice.
Done by the ladies who are, come and donate bowling for boobs. I'm like, sure. Are you doing half and half? No. Okay, I'll do the half and half. Let me jump in. The money's there. Almost everybody has disposable income. Maybe not right now, but on a regular basis, people have disposable income.
You know what, $5, $10, $20 per person, and if you get a good number of people, it all makes a difference at the end. It's funny, you mentioned your softball initiative and stuff like that. So we have another one that we started up 2 years ago with Collective Arts, since you're drinking a Collective Arts IPA number 12. So we started something with them called Brewers Ball, which is a softball tournament. They have a park right behind their brewery, and have made good friends with some of the folk there, and saw that they kind of did a little fun tournament a couple of years ago on their own, just from their own Instagram posts. So kind of presented the idea saying, hey, why don't we try and get brewers to come and play against each other, because it's a small industry. It's a big, but it's a small industry. Everyone knows somebody from some brewery for another brewery. So let's try and get some breweries out, play against each other, and try and raise some money again for our support of McMaster Children's Hospital. So our first year was a small tournament. I think we had six brewers that came out, or 5 brewers that came out, but we had a local Instagram beer blogger team as well. So there was, the ragtag beer bloggers of the area within 50 kilometers kind of came out and you know each other from your handles and your online posts, but you come and meet together and just kind of form a team day of and have a good time. It was fairly successful. I think we raised a decent amount of about $1,200, I think, on that first one. And then last year, got word out and people had said it was a great time, so it expanded and was very successful. I think we had 10 brewers out, including Sawdust City, who is from Gravenhurst. So they traveled 2.5, 3 hours to come down and play in this tournament day of, which is unbelievable. We had a lot of local ones as well, but a few that did travel, an hour, 2, 3 hours to come play in this. And we raised $5,000 last September for our initiative, and it was amazing. I mean, we had probably 150 brewing industry folks, whether they were brewers or marketing people or whatever, all out, and it was a great day. Everyone had a great time, and it's a great situation. Collective Arts, they have an outdoor beer garden. It is literally across the street from the park. So you're in the beer garden having some beers in between games, and then you're going out and playing. And it was a great time. And we had sites to make it bigger and better for our third year this year. But we'll have to see how the year plays out. there's been no discussions at this point. And I know last year we were well a month into planning, and there's there's a bit of a roadblock for this year's event. So we'll have to see if it's delayed until next year for that reason.
Should there be one next year? And I'm currently on the disabled list due to back issues, but I'm getting those resolved. I know a lot of people in the craft beer industry who'd more than willing to travel to Toronto or the Ontario, like Southern Ontario region for a full weekend to lay down a Montreal, Quebec guys challenge against the Ontario guys. So
you know what, and if we can get the support of you guys out in that area, or the Ottawa area at least, beyond the Pale and Bicycle and within the close regions of Montreal, maybe we get an East versus West kind of situation happening, or who knows. But it's a fun time. It's everyone has fun playing baseball, throwing beers, and you're raising money for a good cause, and it's a fun day. So we've been very humbled by the support that we've gotten from brewers and local people that have wanted to support whatever we've kind of put forward. So it's been a great experience doing that, for sure.
Yeah, no, I've yet to meet a bad person in the brewing industry. There's been no question about it. Everybody's been amazing, putting up their own time for just doing stuff like this, just talking about beer and getting my show going, to just as like, what stuff do you support? Oh, you're doing an ugly Christmas sweater party. It's a $20 entry, but 2/3 of that goes to a children's hospital. Then yeah, I'm definitely doing that. So
yeah,
it's great things like that. So you're in the Hamilton-ish area. You got Toronto right next door. Out of all those breweries outside of Collective Arts and Sawdust that you're having right now, what are some of your favorites in the area to go to?
So I'll say that, there's so many, and the industry has expanded so much since we've gotten involved with it, and there's new ones that are popping up left, right, and center every year, and it's been great. Hamilton, we're lucky. There's 5 outstanding breweries in Hamilton, Collective Arts being the one that's been around the longest and is the largest of everyone. We have Fairweather and Grain and Grit, which are literally 150 meters apart from each other. So if you're going to one, you're always going to the other. They do outstanding beers. Grain and Grit does outstanding events to incorporate, families, kids, mothers. They do great stuff. Fairweather's awesome. They have some of the best IPAs and WIPAs that I've tasted in my craft beer experience. Merritt downtown, they're awesome in terms of their experimental beers with wine and mixing flavors, and they make great sausages. They're known for their sausages as well, so it's a great establishment right downtown Hamilton. And Clifford's, which was Canadian Brewery of the Year last year. Brad's done an awesome job there, expanding it from just brewing in his basement to being Canadian Brewery of the Year. So we're lucky to have those 5 right down, in the heart of us. Other ones that are awesome, Great Lakes Breweries is amazing. They've done amazing IPAs and New England IPAs over the last couple of years. They have one of the best pale ales at one of the best prices in Ontario. You can't beat it in terms of cost versus flavor, for sure. Bellwoods, everyone talks about Bellwoods, downtown Toronto. They have some of the best tasting beers as well that everyone lines up for and is willing to shell out big bucks for. But it is great beer, so you definitely get what you pay for. So it's one of the treats that we always like to go to. Cowbell Brewery was one that supported us with the golf tournament. They have an amazing Kolsch. They have a really good hazy IPA that they just came out with. They're very environmentally friendly in terms of their production and green initiatives. So they're a very, very well respected brewery for those reasons, and they make great beer. I don't know. I mean, there's so many other ones that are very small that do really, really great. Um, you know, don't want to single out one-off beers because they have great beers all around. But you love to go and have an IPA from, say, Rorschach, or Left Field, and you have Badlands, which is doing unbelievable IPAs out in Caledon, and I'm sipping this in my third Moon Brewery, which is yet to open. But they will be opening, I think, in the next couple of weeks, from my understanding. And we did with our IG Brew Crew kind of group of people. We did a tasting last November, and their beers were unbelievable. So the GTA's in for a shock when they get to taste the beers that are coming from them, because it was outstanding beers. So everyone's very, very excited to have that brewery finally open. Unfortunately, it's in a pandemic, so it's not going to be the big opening that I'm sure they were hoping for. But curbside and maybe delivery, I'm not too sure what they're planning on, but I know they just started brewing a few weeks ago, so it's going to be in the next couple of weeks that'll come out. So there's so many, but those are a couple that we always enjoy getting our hands on, for sure.
Yeah, so I've created a contact list for my show, or our show, I should say. My videographer is not available to do this at the time we're doing, but I looked at just the GTA area, and there's 53 breweries as of January. So right. I'm like, we could literally spend a month there and not interview every single brewery. So.
It's very true, and we have friends all over from Cambridge, Kitchener, Waterloo, London, all that area, all the way to Whitby, Oshawa. And when you say that, hey, you haven't been to this brewery over here, and they're like, what are you talking about? You haven't been there. It's like, well, I live 100 kilometers this way, so it's not that easy. Everyone's different ages and different situations. I have a wife and two daughters, so it's hard to get out every weekend, let alone once a month, to try something new, right? So it's all everyone's supportive in our group of kind of beer nerds or beer geeks, or whatever you want to call it, where we get together at times and just do bottle shares. So it's like everyone brings 5 or 6 of their favorites from their area, and it's just smorgasbord of what you may have had or haven't had before. So it's that kind of engagement with people that doesn't matter their background, their history, their it doesn't matter. Like, everyone loves the beer, everyone's there for a good time, and that's been, for me personally, that's been the most engaging part of all of this stuff. Beer related and initiative related. The folk are so friendly. Everyone has no judgment on anyone. You could be a 22-year-old recent grad from college, or you could be a 50-year-old, whatever, and you get together, and the love of beer just evaporates any gaps that would be there through age or status or anything. So it's a very inclusive community, and from seeing examples of where separation and divisiveness of putting that stuff out there, it's a great community to be a part of. It's very contagious in terms of being a part of, and wanting to continue to be as part of as much as you can, keeping aside you have your own personal family life to deal with. So it's a fun pastime or hobby, if you will.
Yeah, so for myself, like last summer, I finally had some decent disposable income. So I went to Vermont a bunch of times. It's only a 2-hour drive for us in Canada, in Quebec, Montreal specifically. Yep. And for years, it was like, why haven't you gone to Hill Farmstead? I'm like, because I don't have the extra income to spend 2.5 hours on dirt roads going to this brewery. Now, when I finally went, I waited an hour to drink a beer and an hour to buy beer on the way out.
Yeah.
But I see the appeal of it, of why people spend full weekends in the middle of nowhere, Vermont, in the forest,
Yeah.
to try these beers, because they are legitimately some of the best in the world I've ever had. Well, the best in North America I've ever had. I haven't had, real German beer on a beer garden sitting outside McDonald's or something, but
Right.
it's some of the tastiest saisons I've ever had have been from that place. It's just the bottle shares too. Now we suffer in Canada from the interprovincial beer borders,
Yes.
which is something we have to rid of, because you mentioned you having some of the best new beers coming out of Rorschach, your one-offs, your Badlands. I've heard a lot about Jelly King as well coming out of Badlands, whereas I have Masorum Bractorium, which was named the best new brewery in Canada this year, or
Yeah.
2019. Now I can, but it might not get it to you. I can't just grab 4 of their triple IPAs and send it to you without the risk
Yeah.
of Canada Post going like, no. So that's something that, if we could get rid of that, whereas I have people I know in Ohio who are able to get beer from Vermont.
Yeah.
So
No, for sure. I mean, beer trips and beer excursions are awesome now. I mean, I've traveled here and there, previous to getting into craft beer, and then you look back and goes, man, I was in Boston 7 years ago, and I remember having an IPA because I thought, hey, I like Keith, so let's have an IPA. And I remember taking a swig and I'm like, oh, this is not going to work for me. And it took me an hour to drink that. But now, after the palate's changed, it's like I could have done so much more exploration in Boston at that time 8 years ago. But I mean, the palate's changed about 4 years ago. So, you kind of have to, look forward to getting out and exploring those new experiences. One of the best ones was last June. I had went to Amsterdam. Just one of my other buddies who's not into craft beer, but I've been childhood buddies with him forever. We've seen Metallica 12, 15 times together through our lifetime over the last 20 years. So he suggested, let's go to Amsterdam to see Metallica in June of 2019. And I'm like, okay. Ask permission nicely from the missus and say, what do you think? And it was all positive, which is great. And so we went on the sole purpose to go to Amsterdam, was to go see, for us, Metallica, I think for the 12th or 13th time together over 20 years. But Amsterdam is one of the best European beer areas. Everywhere in Europe is a fantastic beer area. So it was almost like a bonus that this kind of came up through something not associated with what we do here on our Instagram and the Beer Boys moniker, and it just kind of fell into something else, which I'm a music fanatic, love music, heavy, light, EDM to tragically hip to everything super super heavy and metal along the way. So it was a twofold awesome opportunity. So we had gone to Amsterdam and tried awesome Belgian beers and Bells and Tripels, and we went on a craft beer tour where we brought to 3 or 4 different breweries in Amsterdam. So shout out to Amsterdam Craft Beer Tours and Rachel out in Amsterdam. She was amazing. It was a great experience, and I'd recommend, if anyone goes out there, contact Rachel at Amsterdam Breweries Beer Tours, because it was a fantastic experience. So to go and try authentic European beers was a highlight of last year that I dream of being able to do that again. I don't know when I'm going to get a chance to do that again, but it was an unreal experience, to say the least.
Yeah, my plan this year was real Oktoberfest, Germany, but they canceled it. They canceled it 5 times in 300 years, and unfortunately, this is one of them. I get it. I'm completely understanding. I'm in the right mind frame to understand what's going on. So, it's like taking it right on the chin, but it is what it is. And best case scenario, let's say coming this year, maybe I just go to Maine or New Hampshire instead of you know,
it's not a bad substitute. I
yeah,
mean, you might find a
it's
few
something.
beers that might be okay in
Yeah,
that area. So,
but it's to experience those breweries. Speaking of beercations, when things are back to normal as the Southern Ontario Beer Boys, what's kind of like a group trip you'd love to go on with those guys?
so we've loosely talked about stuff along the way. It's nothing too serious because we're all kind of around the same age. We're in our late 30s, early 40s. Kind of I've got two girls that are in competitive gymnastics. Paul's got two boys that are in rep baseball. Mike's got younger folks, so it's very hard to plan something that is selfishly dedicated to beer
Mm-hmm.
for the group of us. But I mean, we'd love to go to the East Coast. We'd love to go to the Vermont and the Boston's. Paul's a huge Boston Bruins fan, so if we can work in a Bruins game, yeah, I agree. I agree. F Boston and all
Habs
the
fan
worth.
here. So.
Yeah, well, F the Habs. So sorry, Leaf fan. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's just side things that you have to get over. So I've done the hockey trips with my brother and stuff like that. So we've gone to experience about a half dozen NHL arenas.
Mm-hmm.
But Boston, I've not been to. That'd be a great trip to go see there and try some of that. So I think the East Coast would be probably the most easiest of further away areas to go. And we've gone to Buffalo. Buffalo in New York has got some great breweries there. Thin Man Brewery is amazing. Big Ditch. There's a couple other ones that are really, really good in that area. So those ones are about an hour drive. So we've done those ones separately. And we've all raved about how good those beers are there. So, I mean, there's good beer everywhere in America. So even just going down to Detroit or Cleveland, I mean, you'll find great breweries down there. But as far as Meccas go, I mean, obviously East Coast would be great. Going to California would be great, and trying to get some Pliny and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was lucky to actually one of the guys on my team at work was down in San Diego late last year, and I said, "Hey, see this picture of Pliny the Elder? If you happen to see this, see if you can smuggle me one back." And he actually found it and brought me one back, and got to sample that, which was an outstanding classic, #1 beer for I think 7 years in a row
Mm-hmm.
in the U.S. for was voted on. So doing something like East Coast and West Coast would obviously be great. I was just in Florida at the start of the COVID at the beginning of March and tried a bunch of breweries down on southern. I was down in West Palm Beach and Fort Lauderdale. So went to Civil Society, which had been up in Canada. Collective Arts, the beer that you're drinking, they do a festival that they started a couple years ago called it was called Liquid Arts Fest. This year it's been coined back to Collective Arts Fest, but they basically get about 45 or 50 breweries from around the world to come and pour beer at their festivals. So a lot of festivals in Ontario are just locals, so you kind of had everything, and other than they might brew something special for the festival, but the unique thing about the Collective Arts Fest was, you'll get a brewery from Japan and from Iceland and from China and from South America and from the US and from Sweden. And you'd have all these beers that you would never, ever get a chance to try. And it's all here in Hamilton for you to try, in the 4 hours or 5 hours that you're there for that session. So Civil Society was one of the breweries that was here 2 years ago, and they were down in West Palm Beach where I was back at the beginning of March. So tried about 3 or 4 different breweries down there, all outstanding. Smuggled some beer back in my suitcase. Still have 1 or 2 left in my beer fridge that saving for a rainy day or a sunny day to have in the patio. And there's lots of outstanding beers from the U.S. that are meant to be explored and tried for sure.
Yeah. So just to give you a heads up, if you are in Boston, I have a friend, Phil, as I mentioned before, he goes down for a video game convention for his company. And
Nice.
He says you have to book a table at Trillium and Treehouse if you are going to go.
Right.
You can't just like show up and sit down and have beers. You have to book time. So just to give you that heads up.
Good.
When you go
Good
down.
to know. Good to
So
know. Noted for whenever we get out there. Hopefully, in 5 years or less, we'll put a time of
yeah.
5 years or less on that one.
Yeah, for sure. I'm personally trying to get down. It's called Brattleboro, Vermont. It's just before where Massachusetts meets Vermont.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
called Brattleboro, and there's a place called Hermit Thrush, and they focus on sours.
Nice.
And I also want to get out to Columbus and stay at the Brewdog Hotel.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Are you a big sour fan?
Yeah. Right. Well, it depends on my mood. Like right now, I'm having IPAs, and I'm going for some after this, I've got the Nickelbrook barrel aged bourbon I'm going to have.
Oh, nice.
So I've got those. It depends on my moods. Summertime is pretty much sours a lot because
Right.
I find they're very like chill out.
Yep.
Not like overpowering where my mouth is going like inside my face. It's
Yes.
those well balanced sours and
Not
gozes
not
too.
not a mother pucker
Yeah.
all the way.
Well, there's an old 90s commercial. I can't remember what company it is, but they were trying to like take shots at the craft beer industry. And they're like, oh, bitter beer face. And you guys see the guy takes a sip of beer and it's like the sour candy where his face went like inside.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like that. And I'm like, no, I like the well-balanced sours. Like, I mean, one of my favorite sours was an apricot milkshake sour from Pub Brewski,
Okay.
a former interview of mine. And I'm like, when are you making it again? He's like, one of the brewers is like, I don't know if we are. I'm like, no, I want this on tap 20, like all the time. He's like, well, we're experimenting. I'm like, no, you're not listening to me. Brew it again. Yeah. So, do you yourself brew?
I do not. It's again, I'm at the age where my kids are, and my work's busy, and my kids kind of with them and their extracurricular activities. It's very busy. So I mean, I'd love to take some courses, and like a lot of the beer bloggers and Instagram folks have slowly, getting their level 1s or level 2s along the ways. Just to know 110% of what I'm talking about. I mean, I've kind of learned along the last couple of ways as the rest of the guys in our group have, but we're not experts by any means. I mean, we stumbled into the craft brewery industry just from trying something, and then with our kind of want to do something more for our communities. It's kind of that's what our modus operandi kind of is. But I mean, yeah, it'd be awesome to be able to know 100% the science behind brewing and be able to brew ourselves. One of the other groups that we're part of is the IG Brew Crew, which was set up by Ken, which is Ontario Beer Guy, his Instagram handle. And it's basically turned into a group of probably about 35 to 45 people that are just like you and me, and it's a group that just kind of hangs out. We get together, bottle shares, meet up at breweries, shoot the poop about, what you're drinking, all that kind of stuff. We have Instagram chats that just, go on forever about what you're drinking and this and that. But Ken's organized a bunch of brew dates with a bunch of local breweries where, they'll have us out. They'll explain the brewing process, they'll explain, how we do it, and make us a part of brewing the beer with them, where we're mixing the malts and measuring the malts and throwing in the hops and then taking out the mash and just being a whole part of the whole brewing process, and then actually being a part of being able to name the beer, and those breweries will very small batch, but they'll market those beers with the kind of the IG Brew Crew moniker on it, in terms of a collab between Wellington Brewery and IG Brew Crew kind of thing, right? Which a lot of breweries around here are very into doing and enjoying, that interaction with beer loving people, right? So, so that group is done about 7 or 8, I think, different brews with different breweries in the last 2 years. So it's something that's continued to be scheduled. I mean, we just missed one. We were supposed to do one with Great Lakes, which would have been amazing because they're one of everyone's favorites locally around here in Etobicoke, Toronto. They're an amazing brewery, very down to earth, and that was one everyone's looking forward to. But because of COVID, it's been postponed indefinitely. Hopefully it will happen again, because that's one that everyone was definitely looking forward to. They do amazing IPAs, hazy IPAs, like I had mentioned before. So, but yeah, it's doing that kind of stuff makes you realize the science behind brewing beer and the education and the nuances of doing it. It's not just like, hey, let's just dump malts and dump water and throw in this and we got a beer. Like, it's very much more complex than that, which, obviously if you're in the craft beer industry or a fan of, that it's that complex, but to the average person, they might just think, well, it's just beer. Like, you just brew it and it just kind of happens, but it's very intricate and very scientific and very precise in terms of how you get what you are trying to achieve with a beer. So being able to be a part of that with this group of people that love beer has been awesome. It's been made tons of new friends that are all over the spectrum of people you would think that you'd just kind of hang out with. And it's a great, like I said before, it's a great industry and super friendly people, and everyone's positive. And it's almost like a hippie kind of thing. Everyone loves each other. Everything's positive. Everything's rosy. But it's kind of that way where everyone, like, doesn't matter your background or this and that. It's just a fun time to be with each other and just hang out and enjoy a beer and say what you like, and no one's judgmental for the most part in terms of what you say about a beer, right? So it's a fun thing that we've stumbled into over the last couple of years. So
yeah, personally, for the show, I was hoping on my like either the 1 year anniversary of the show or the 100th episode of this show is that I brew a beer with a brewery, because I've got ideas percolating, and it's just the execution in the end. So
yes,
so maybe in the future you'll see all beer inside beer on the shelves.
Yeah, I'll be the first to buy it if I get my hands on it. For sure.
I'll be shipping them out if I can. So, because like Collective Arts have finally started posting bilingual labels, so they're actually finally started coming into Quebec, which is very nice.
Nice. Yes, Collective is kicking ass globally, because they're hustling. They're hustling more than I'm sure the other breweries that hustle as much. But I mean, just because they're local, and I know a bunch of the guys and girls that are there, and they hustle hard. They're globally all over the place and making those connections and doing those collabs and stuff like that. So I think I don't know if they've opened, but they're about to open, if they haven't already, a brick and mortar place in Brooklyn, I think, in New York City. And then they're all over the place, South Florida, down in Chicago, they're down in Nashville, they're all over the place. So good on them. I mean, they're a company of about, I think, 20 or 30 people about 4 years ago, and now I think they're in that 130, 140, 150 range of people. So they're doing unbelievable stuff. So they're good on them for trying to push their limits in terms of what they can accomplish. So
yeah, it's like that with any like craft brewery with like huge aspirations. Like even in, let's say, the States, like all I ever see are Sierra Nevada and Magic Hat everywhere. So it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So what's next for the Southern Ontario Beer Boys brand?
So we had a couple of things planned for this year, and the whole COVID thing has kind of put stuff on hold, or hiatus. Obviously, we were going to be doing our Brewers Ball 3 tournament in September. That hasn't been discussed at all, just because at this point there's nothing to discuss, because we don't know where things are going to land throughout the year. So we're hoping that happens again, because there was a lot of breweries that have said after that, all the breweries that came out saying this was awesome, we're going to be back for sure. And some breweries that wanted to be there that couldn't this last year said, make sure you let us know, because we want to be there next year. So, which is awesome. We had teamed up with one of the local beer festival owners in the area, the iHeart Brew Festivals. There's they do a bunch in late in the year, in November, December, which they've paired with eateries to do tacos. So it's the iHeart Beer and Taco in November, December, and then I think it's in February, March, early April, they do I Heart Beer and mac and cheese. So it's in this restaurants that can prepare a food item with mac and cheese in the menu, and just kind of pairs that. So they'll have a bunch of breweries that'll come up with that. So were planning on doing the Great Ontario Beer Festival in June of this year, and I'd spoken with the owner a couple times over the last 2 years or so, and they love the Cans for Kids idea. So the plan was to do a massive can drive to try and raise money, which would go to McMaster Children's Hospital, which is our supporting entity that we put our money towards. And his goal was to try and set a Guinness World Record for the amount of empties collected in a 8 or 9 hour period. So apparently the record is 156,000 empties in an 8 hour, 9 hour period, which was done in San Diego, somewhere in California, like 7 or 8 years ago. So he had figured that out and said, we're going to beat this. And his ultimate goal was to, expand on that year after year and be able to get, restaurants and bars and industries and breweries to get behind this initiative of donating empties. His ultimate goal, and I'd love to be a part of it. I mean, it's a very challenging goal, lofty goal, but his ultimate goal is to get 1 million empties donated within a day. So it'll be $100,000 worth of empties. So it's possible, because for the amount of beer that people drink, it's definitely there. But it's the challenge of organizing the amount of people and the amount of drop off, or however you want to do it. The logistics of doing that, it would be the challenge, and just to get the people to be engaged in that. So that was something that we're working on this year. And it's been obviously put on hold because that was supposed to happen in June, and obviously we're not going to be doing anything in June. So I'm going to assume that something might be for next year, that'll carry over, and then we'll see where that takes us. I mean, it's a lofty challenge, but I'm always up for a challenge, and if it's going to involve our initiative, then our group will do anything behind that to try and make that happen. So that was the big thing for this year, and that's kind of been put on hold because of the global situation at this point.
I mean, I'll be honest. I know in Quebec there's no empty returns right now. I don't know what Ontario's like. So there's a good chance you might have people with 2 years worth of empties showing up and going here.
Yeah. So we put out there a few weeks ago to save your empties, and we called it, Operation Isolation Empties. So save your empties, bag them, crush them, do whatever. If you can hang on to them, as soon as it's safe that we can come and pick them up, then we'll pick them up and see if we can make a little bit of money out of doing that. We've had a decent response from people that we know, and a few people that we don't know have reached out to us and seen the posts on Twitter and Instagram and said, hey, saw what you did, you're going to pick up. And it's like, we will pick up, but when it's safe. Right now, it doesn't appear to be the time to do that, but hopefully once things slow down, which things seem to be starting to maybe, flattening the curve, as they say, if once things get a little bit more safer, then people seem to be having a few more beers these days, because there's nothing else to do when you finish work at home than have a few beers, right? So if we can kind of play off of that and make a few bucks for our initiative, then we'll definitely do that. So we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, exactly. If you're not an essential worker, drinking and driving just doesn't exist for you right now. So
nope.
Just drinking and staying home.
I've put gas in my car once since March.
Quebec's always more expensive than Ontario. So I got it when it was still like over $1, and now it's 80 cents here, and I'm like, no. But
yeah, I think we got as low as about 61 cents or something stupid like that, and it's like, I'm not driving, so I don't need gas. So
there's a joke going around. It's like, gas is cheaper than it's ever been. Flights are cheaper than they've ever been. Nobody can go anywhere, or nobody should be going anywhere. So
no. No. My sister-in-law is a flight attendant, and there's no point in going anywhere at this point. So what can you do?
Just stay home, stay safe, as I've been saying to a lot of people. So
stay home, stay safe, have a good beer, and repeat.
For sure. So at this point, I have no other questions for you. So let the people know where they could find the Southern Ontario Beer Boys and how people can get in touch with you for this kind of stuff.
Yep. So on Instagram, we're as the name says, we're Southern Ontario Beer Boys on Instagram and Twitter. We try and post almost daily in terms of what we're drinking, and you'll see some posts about our initiatives along the way. Same thing on Twitter. We'll throw a shout out on there, and we're a part of the IG Brew Crew, which has its own Instagram handle. You can check them out. We brew at a bunch of different places a couple of times throughout the year, which is a great experience. And yeah, that's pretty much where we're at with things. And we'll continue to enjoy great craft beer and meet new people and enjoy each other's company and experiences, hopefully sooner than later, because we're all itching to get together. And just in our chats, it's like the first time we get together, it's going to be the best get together that we've ever had in our lifetimes, right? So people are going to be ready for a party that they're not going to remember the next day once we get to share beers again, right? So
yeah, I'm a big proponent of once it's kind of safe again, I'm going to do the Montreal, Quebec-based one, and then I'm traveling out to Toronto, and I'm going to do one with influencers and Instagrammers and guys like yourselves, where we're just all going to get together, just rent like a mansion Airbnb for a night and just go balls to the wall for an evening. Yeah. So
I'm down. Let me know when you're in Toronto, because I'll gladly make myself available for a night of good chatter and good beer.
Love to hear it, and we'd love to hear it as well. And if you'd like to hear more, eventually I'll be uploading the audio on the website of allbeerinside.com. You can always find our show at All Beer Inside on Twitter and Instagram. Jeff Bezos makes a lot of money. You can always help the show by going on allbeerinside.com and clicking on the Amazon link on the right-hand side of the page. It helps us out with buying equipment for the show. And if we make enough, we can always donate those gift cards as well. So you can help us out there. And as I say at the end of every episode, drink craft, not crap. Thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate this today.